Alright, I'm scratching off the last of the MCU essays, so here's one of the stragglers that I didn't get to reach back in the day, Hawkeye and Black Widow's relationship. However, to avoid overlapping this video with the individual essays, this video will be focused on social identity. Therefore, no Gothman or trauma theories will be utilised. My eyes are watering just from saying that. However, to begin, it's important to present a robust definition of social identity, which is basically the side of our identities that is defined by our memberships within a social group. It's pretty self-explanatory here. As Jenkins argued, identification matters because it is the basic cognitive mechanism that humans use to sort ourselves out and their fellows, individually and collectively. As human beings, we often need to see ourselves as more than individuals because it's how we learn to behave and feel safe. Hawkeye and Black Widow provide a unique example of this process because their relationship is literally about providing each other a reference point for who they are in both life and in death. Therefore, this video essay will be conducted with a slightly stronger research focus in order to analyze how this psychological process is presented in their appearances. But I'm also still trying to figure out how to balance the theory stuff, so bear with me in my bloody shenanigans. Black Widow and Hawkeye's relationship is comprised of 4 movie appearances: Avengers 1, Age of Ultron, Civil War, and Endgame, and throughout each installment, they remain consistently as best friends. There's no traditional narrative beat where they fall out or anything. Therefore, in contrast to Steve and Tony or Thor and Loki's relationships, the essence of this pairing is focused on the theme of perseverance as opposed to change. For example, where Steve and Tony loses their patience with each other due to their opposing political beliefs.
I'm trying to keep you from tearing the Avengers apart. You did that when you signed.
Clint and Natasha sees their disagreement as being something completely innocuous and treats the fight itself as a form of sparring.
We're still friends, right?
Depends on how hard you hit me.
As a result, the content of Natasha and Clint's relationship comes from how they alleviate each other's individual dramas, because whenever they're on screen together, the story treats it as a break from all the darkness. In Age of Ultron, Natasha is dealing with her heartbreak with Bruce, and Clint is dealing with his sense of mortality. They both share very different feelings of impotence. However, the story still takes the time for them to have a light moment together where they can casually chat about getting rid of the family dining room.
I knock out that east wall, make a nice workspace for Laura, huh? What do you think?
You guys always eat in the kitchen anyway.
No one eats in a dining room.
Therefore, Natasha and Clint's relationship functions as a mutual sanity check because they provide each other a sense of emotional safety. Subsequently, for the purpose of this research, this sanity check quality will be contextualized within a 3-act structure in order to see how it develops and changes. Traditionally, the first act of a story is about the heroes at home, the second act is the highs and lows of the hero on their journey after leaving home, and the final act is when the hero comes back as a different person. And yes, I'm referring back to Joseph Campbell's monomyth again, and yes, I'm also going to start referring to other narratologists at some point. Just bear with me.
I'm about to hit you in the head with a peanut butter sandwich.
Therefore, the 4 appearances, when organized, Avengers 1 functions as Act 1 because Natasha reunites with Clint, and together restore a status quo. Then Age of Ultron and Civil War functions as Act 2 because they are separated from their own individual dramatic arcs.
What about Nat and Dr. Banner? How long has that been going on?
As what?
As a result, Endgame fulfills Act 3 for the reason that they finally reunite as new and different people. Consequently, this model means Hawkeye and Natasha function metaphorically as each other's homes, because they're the familiar sanctuary they leave and return to at the end. However, to delve deeper, we must ask why they keep coming back to each other, because other characters fulfill similar roles. Steve and Clint's family are similar emotional guides that both characters return to, but within the narrative's presentation, they're treated with less emotional intensity. Although Steve does come very close.
I've seen her flirt. Up close. This ain't that.
Natasha's deep connection with Clint comes from her tragic obsession to pursue what she believes to be an illusion. In Avengers 1, it's heavily inferred that Clint was the turning point in Natasha's life after a long, regrettable career working for the Russians.
Agent Barton was sent to kill me. He made a different call.
Therefore, she's motivated by a need to preserve a redemptive meaning to her life. However, when Loki teases her for this fairy tale-like logic behind her motives, she doesn't actually argue, but confirms it.
Is this love, Agent Romanoff?
Love is for children. I owe him a debt.
Therefore, Black Widow's side of this relationship is deeply performative because she doesn't believe that she can achieve redemption, but only get close to it. But the private moment she shares with Clint after he's been freed from mind control contrasts this. The same moral ambiguity is flipped. Natasha is the moral anchor that absolves him of his guilt, and she does for him what she needs from him.
How many agents did I get?
Don't do that to yourself, Clint.
Therefore, there's a paradox in Black Widow's side of this relationship, because as long as she's under the belief that she needs someone else to give her meaning, then she'll never be truly convinced in the one that she has.
You know, it's kind of hard to trust someone when you don't know who that someone really is.
Yeah.
Therefore, despite being invited into Hawkeye's family and having his children named after her, Natasha still identifies more with Bruce than with Clint, a monster who doesn't deserve anything good. In Age of Ultron, Clint suffers from a similar existential crisis. He doesn't feel relevant among the Avengers because he's increasingly consumed by his domestic world, and the longer he stays with them, the more likely he'll find himself dying.
Yeah, and then you'll find another part of the house to tear apart.
No. It's the last project.
As a result, Natasha is an important mediator that cares for him, the work wife that has membership with his family and also shares the same job with a membership to the Avengers. Subsequently, the second act of the relationship places an emphasis on narratives because each social identity represents a different story, be it the biography of being a lonely monster or the biography of a family man. However, the contrast in these narratives puts Natasha and Clint into different directions in life. Therefore, by Civil War, they're on opposite sides.
Criminals, don't you? I think that's the word you're looking for. Right? That didn't used to mean me.
Endgame galvanizes all the elements by taking away both of their social identities. What happens when you take away Clint's family or take away Natasha's connection with the Avengers? The results are the roles are reversed. On Clint's end, his trauma has made Natasha a deeply abstract fairy tale-like symbol, because their relationship restores some of his old continuity. For example, when they reunite, he says, "Don't give me hope."
Don't give me hope.
And then when they try to figure out who should die, he says,
You know what I've become.
Well, I don't judge people on their worst mistakes.
Maybe you should.
You didn't.
Therefore, like Natasha at the start of the story, Clint desperately needs to believe in what she represents in order to redeem himself. However, also like their moment after he's been freed from being mind-controlled, Natasha is still building him back up as a great moral exemplar, despite the roles being evidently flipped. As a result, the main pattern that is actively preserved is how incredibly durable their identification with each other is. But it's now shown to be deeply bittersweet. They value each other because they can't value themselves. However, in the end, she dies to make the impossible possible, restoring his family and half of all life. We never truly knew how many people she killed, so it's rather poetic that we'll never know how many people she saved. All that is left is Clint reconciling with her memory with the same paradoxical longingness as she did. The narrative of this relationship is built on a seesaw-like logic. As Natasha ascends, Clint descends, and as Hawkeye becomes less symbolically abstract, Natasha becomes more so. Therefore, this friendship is often maintained by the way they idealize certain characteristics from each other, because it's these characteristics that allow them to correspond the construction of their identities with an ideal that they want, something to strive towards. As a result, Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton's friendship shows us that how we see ourselves is dependent on how it's reflected back to us. And with the right people, that reflection allows us to know if we're headed towards the right place. Because the story of our relationships holds the story of ourselves, and a good story is a good home. In conclusion, I wish I had the Black Widow movie to work with while writing all of this, but I didn't, and this probably means everything I said may become contradicted.
Is she a spy too? They start that young?
I did.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Come on!